Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for the Q&A of Not Just Another Day. I'm really excited to have the director and producer here with us today, just to kind of talk about their inspiration for making this movie and maybe some of the behind the scenes and details of just making the movie. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys. Before we get started, I did want to remind everyone to remember to rate the movies whenever you're done watching them. It's going to help us determine the audience award at the end of the week. So remember to do that. And then also I want to thank our major sponsors, as well as the sponsors for this film, Napomo Swap Meet and Mini Storage through Melissa Smith. So thank you guys. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And we couldn't pull this off without you. So do you guys, Ricky and Jordan, do you guys want to just kind of introduce yourselves, how you got started with this film, what made you passionate about wanting to make this story and all of that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ricky Rhodes and I directed Not Just Another Day.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm Jordan Henderson. I was the producer on this, and we have a production company together called Planet Froth. We make a lot of other similar films. And Ricky was working on this idea, and when he presented it to me, it definitely fell in line with our mission to create films that provoke thoughts and inspire positive change.
Totally.
You want to tell them how you pitched it to me, Anna?
Yeah. So I was just doing some research and found that a lot of people were still in prison for cannabis, and people were still being arrested for cannabis crimes. And then as we dug deeper into this, we found that Black Americans are arrested at a higher rate than white Americans for cannabis possession. So legal cannabis on its surface is this totally fun, ubiquitously used substance. But behind the scenes, it's really, there are a lot of people going to jail for it. There are a lot of people whose families are suffering because people are in jail and in prison. And so we really felt compelled to tell this story to show the two sides of legal cannabis.
Yeah.
To a lot of people who don't know about this information.
Totally. And how did you get connected to Lionel? How'd you find his story and want to focus on him?
Yeah, we were conducting several interviews. We had dozens of interviews going on, and we were reaching out to people who were still serving prison sentences. And that was very tragic. It was like a hard time for us going through. And other connections from other people who had their own dispensaries or new people that got caught up in it or were involved. But actually it's from our principal funding dispensary called From the Earth. They work with a lot of other nonprofits. That's why they wanted to fund a piece like this. And they knew the executive director of a nonprofit called Inside Out Writers. And he had worked with Lionel in his youth. They're an organization that wants to help heal incarcerated youth through writing, creative writing. And it's a way for them to express and to have an outlet. And he said, I have a person that, same thing, tragic story. He was just a small amount of weed and it, made him homeless. It tore him from he lost his jobs, he lost his place. And so we're like, yeah, please put us in touch. And we started interviewing him several times and we really connected with him right away.
We fell in love with him pretty fast.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. I love the opening. I love the opening scene of him just, being so passionate about cooking and him with his son, and both bookends of the film are just him in like a happy place. And it's so cool to just see his dream and his passion and all of that. And then like you get into the film and you just see that getting broken down. Like you see him kind of go through this phase of, well, maybe I am just a criminal. Like maybe, just kind of that sense of defeat after, doing everything that he can to stay out of that kind of stuff. And then still to be portrayed as this criminal, you just see this defeat in him of like, well, maybe that is just me. And so I'm wondering how, I guess just, I don't know, can you guys talk on that at all of just like, how does it break people down and how can people like get back to the passion and get back to the dream whenever, you know, there are just so many injustices and everything in, you know, those cultures.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, because that's a huge part of this story, is that Lionel is a good person, and he has a family, and he's just trying to live a good life. But then obviously he gets swept up into this system that portrays him as a criminal and portrays him as something that he is not. And in doing that, it also takes everything from him. It takes his money, it takes his apartment. He was homeless for a bit, and completely upends. Oh, he also stops going to culinary school. Yep. Completely upends his life. And so, yeah, what you noticed is really just what we want people to notice, that he's a good person, and this happens to good people. This doesn't just happen to criminals. It doesn't just happen to bad people. It happens to just anybody who gets caught in the system. And unfortunately, that happens to Black people at a much higher rate. So, yeah, coming back to your question of how do you kind of get back on track? How does somebody deal with a situation like this? Well, Lionel was pretty vigilant in that he was trying to go to court to get the money back that the police officers confiscated from him on the day of his arrest. And so he just consistently kept going to court, trying to state his case and to say, I'm not a drug dealer. I was working these 2 different jobs. All that money that you took from me came from these jobs. And so he really had this fire within him to stand up for himself. And so he is a pretty magnificent person for being able to do that. Yeah. And not a lot of people can do that. A lot of people just get stuck in jail and then get a 5-year sentence. He was going to get a 5-year sentence, but luckily he got a pro bono lawyer through the organization that Jordan was talking about, Inside Out Writers. So Lionel is very much a special person in that he was fighting like fiercely to he's just a working guy. Yeah, really wrong. But if you don't have fight in you, which a lot of people do not, and don't have the resources to combat this behemoth of a system, then they're not going to find themselves in a situation as good as Lionel's. Right. And Lionel's situation was not good. So it's like, that's part of the film is to show that.
I think a really important takeaway from that note is you see all these things lined up for him well, and it kind of became the best case scenario for someone in his situation. And to see that this happened, like, okay, here's the best case scenario. You got a free lawyer to represent someone who would never have been able to get a lawyer like this. You had, the case going up, enough evidence to go against it. And he had a support system of his family to help bail him out, so he didn't have to stay in jail too long while he's waiting trial. And you see all these things, and his ambition, that's super important too. This person that wasn't letting them call him, you're a drug dealer, you're a criminal. He wasn't letting it get to him. He's like, that's not me. He pulled out of that. And again, like best case scenario, he still loses his job. He still lost his house. He still lost his schooling. And it's a very big reveal on like how ugly the criminal justice system can be for some people, because it's a trap, and it's intended for you to stay there. It's not intended for you to find your way out like Lionel did. And even when he did, it was not without conditions. Yeah. He never did get that money back either.
I know. And I think it's so important to show stories like this where you kind of see the behind the scenes of like, this was the fallout of this happening. And it wasn't just, got arrested, go to jail, like we see a lot of just kind of the surface level stories of all of this, but to see the behind the scenes of like, no, this was a best case scenario and still all of this is happening, and still I remember there was a quote in the movie of, oh, I got lucky, but then the lawyer was like, you didn't get lucky, like this was just like, this was how it's supposed, or like this was how it's supposed to work, like, and that kind of thing. And, yeah. And for he said another thing of a lot of this happens because a lot of us don't know our rights, and we don't know what is like right or wrong in the system and stuff. And so how can people, I guess, just how can we educate more about like what everyone's rights are and what is appropriate and what isn't, in the system and everything? Like what can we do after watching this movie to just, push forward and kind of make more equality and have this happen less?
Yeah, so the biggest thing with these cannabis possession we're still on. Sorry, go. 1 sec. So the biggest problem with these cannabis possession arrests is that they exist.
Right.
So it's really not a matter of trying to fix specifically by eliminating cannabis possession arrests, by legalizing cannabis, because it's been used as this tool of destruction for so many decades. And so the real way to combat it is to legalize cannabis, and then all of these sticky situations would just disappear. For the people who are currently incarcerated, which is roughly 40,000 Americans, actually that's just prison, right?
That's just in prison, yeah.
Just in prison. And then there's a large amount of people every year, roughly 140, 150,000 that get arrested for cannabis possession.
That's just Black Americans.
Oh, and that's just Black Americans.
Yeah. 140,000, 150,000 last year arrested just for cannabis possession.
Yeah. And so what we really need to do is just legalize this drug, and it's not even a drug. It's being used as medicine, and it's being sold legally across the entire country. So once that actually becomes legal, then all of a sudden, all these people are just freed, and they don't have to be checking their rearview mirror, constantly wondering if they're going to be pulled over and arrested and sent to jail for 5 years, and they're not going to be able to see their families.
Right.
The other huge part to this of what can we do, there's a blaring hypocrisy going on right now where you have one side of people going to jail and they're being criminalized, and then you have the other side of these it's a multi-billion-dollar industry now of legal cannabis, and they're making tons of money. Their sales are at record highs right now, and it's bringing tax revenue into the same states and governments that are also making money off of people being in jail.
Right.
So a really big thing is holding these companies accountable. It's not just that, it's a big fun, everything's legal. It's if you are profiting off of this drug, if you're profiting off of this product, then you have a responsibility to help these communities also. And that's a consumer's thing. That's what a consumer can do, is only support companies that are taking equity to the forefront. If they're hiring people that are Black and brown, if they are giving back to those communities, if they're doing outreach programs. And I think if we start prioritizing that as consumers, then that's going to put the pressure on these people who are making money to also put pressure on lawmakers to help out the people that are still suffering from this.
Totally. That's awesome. I do just have one more question. I know there was a Lionel in the scene where he gets arrested. He talks about you can never get used to, having a gun drawn on you and feeling like you could die, and that this person has the power to do that to you and all of that. So I'm wondering how it was on set that day, kind of recreating that and reenacting that, and if it brought up any, emotions, or if it was what was the mentality around on set that day?
Yeah, good question. So Lionel is not an actor. This just happened to him. And we asked him if he wanted to try his hand at acting in the reenactments to basically redo the scenes that happened to him in the story. And he said, sure, I'm going to try. I can't guarantee an Oscar performance, but I'm going to do my best. And so that was a really interesting experience working with Lionel as an actor, because he would give us the inside information on how it actually felt in all these situations.
Right.
He knows exactly what it feels like to be pulled over by a cop. He knows what it feels like to sit in jail. And so nobody is more of an expert than Lionel on the feelings that were going through his mind during all these horrible things that happened to him. So that day on set, Lionel actually was saying that he was being arrested again. So he's not an actor, so he was actually experiencing this again. He was having these true emotions. And also we kind of set it up so that there wasn't too much rehearsal. We wanted to capture a pretty genuine response. Mm-hmm. So, he's just driving, and then all the cop car pulling him over, and he's actually being arrested. And from his perspective, he was actually back being arrested again, and he was actually sitting in the back of that cop car. And then, once we took him to the jail scenes, he was in jail. He was remembering what it was like to be in jail, and he was channeling all that. So it was actually an even truer experience than what could be delivered from an actor who is, maybe pulling from some other experience in their life that they can use that's similar. Lionel was pulling from actually being arrested, actually going to jail.
Yeah. Dang. I was watching that and I was like, this had to be a hard day. Like this had to, and both scenes where, he's in the bed and gets woken up by it, and the arrest scene and everything. I was watching and I was like, that has to be something like difficult to relive and difficult to kind of experience again, but also I think really cool that you guys were able to capture that and able to kind of have us, like the audience, have a look into like, okay, what was that day like for him and what were those emotions around that? So I think that was really cool.
Yeah, it was definitely a conversation that we had with him. This is going to be deeply intense and a deep psychological journey for you. So if you're willing to relive all these things and go through everything again, then we want to be the ones who capture this and do your story justice. And Lionel dove in, and it was incredibly difficult at certain times, and it was emotional, but the knowledge of his story being used as a tool for justice just kept him going throughout the shoot.
Yeah. That's so cool. Do you guys have any just kind of closing thoughts or anything else that you wanted to touch on in this interview or anything?
Well, I'll say really briefly in regard to the intense scenes with those, we were careful. We didn't want to try to trigger traumas with him. And we had these discussions beforehand, and he's very in tune with his life now with meditation and balance and centering. So we would take the moments to do that. And then especially that day, the cop car pulling over, that was such a long day. We all went and gave him pizza. We had like a pizza day at a nice place after, and his family came over. It was like, there's a combination. We had the work, the hard, this was like, okay, we're diving into it. I mean, there's scenes where he has to go back to a jail, but then afterwards, like now he's one of our good friends. He comes over, he hangs out. We have a boat that we like have meetings on now, and we call him.
He calls us all the time.
Yeah, so say hi. Like it was like this relationship that we built that like it's such a unique relationship, because there's no other way I think we would have been in touch with this person other than making this film, and then now we have another beautiful human being in our lives. So.
Yeah, and so Lionel has we've merged stories now. So with the creation of the documentary, now Lionel is our friend, and we do everything that we can to help him in his day-to-day life. And so actually a big thing that we're organizing here in LA is Lionel has a catering company called Tasty Tate's Kitchen. And his last name is Tate, Lionel Tate, Tasty Tate's Kitchen. And what he's doing is a vegan soul food meal to anybody in LA, and it can be delivered DoorDash. And so this is a way to support Lionel, but then also to directly support the communities that were negatively affected by these cannabis possession arrests. So yeah, we're always working with Lionel and trying to help him.
Yeah, and that's going on. That's coinciding with the San Luis Obispo International Film Festival. As it's screening throughout that week, we designated the 13th, which is the Saturday, as that's going to be our big promotion premiere date, and that's the date when the catering will be available to anyone in the LA area who wants to experience that culinary experience along with the film, which the dishes he's offering they do make an appearance in the film too, so it pairs well.
Famous dishes.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And you guys can go to our food pairings page to kind of get the link to get all the information for that, so that you can participate in that. So go to that page also. Thank you guys so much for just taking the time to do this Q&A and to just kind of give our audience a little bit of a deeper look into your inspiration behind it and why you wanted to make it, and just kind of, all the stuff that happened on set and all of that. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Grace. Thank you to the San Luis Obispo Film Festival for picking this film to highlight these issues that are in it. And of course, I want to give the quick thank you to the crew and everyone that helped us out throughout the whole way. And From the Earth, they sponsored it because they saw how important it was and they wanted to make it happen. And yeah, we've been working on this for 2 years just to really make this happen. So really excited to kick it off with you guys.
Awesome. And I saw that on your guys' website, there's some petitions and there's some links to nonprofits and stuff that, so if anyone is really interested and wants to check this out and just kind of do a little bit more to help out, please go to their website. I will make it available somewhere, their website. So what is your guys' website so that people watching this can?
It's planetfroth.space. So like Planet Froth is like our planet, and then it's .space because it's in space.
And / Not Just Another Day is where you find the resources for this film.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Grace.
Thank you.
Absolutely.